in the middle. Okay, so I have to repeat it. Okay, that's always fun. Anyway, dominating the news is the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. And I guess it's a good time to maybe talk about certain things like, Aikido. All right, the attack was somebody using a hammer. Okay. And what would Aikido, for example, do in a situation like that? And, just kind of rocks us to our core a bit. Because it's a martial art. It's more than that. But, for example, if somebody's gonna, obviously the hammer is gonna swing at you, then, what? Cliff, any questions or comments on that, or?
I don't know. I mean, like home invasion scenario.
Yeah.
I would probably fall back on either, I would like grab a staff or a bokken because I have those handy.
Sure.
Or fall back on more karate kind of thing, because if someone's invading your home, they're, I would do what I know the best, most
Of course,
efficient.
yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I would try to, obviously all of my martial arts training in Aikido and Tai Chi and Karate and even the Capoeira that I did would come into play about how my body moves and tries to react to the situation without freezing or muscling it, right? If possible, just to do the necessary efficient movements.
Yeah.
That's what, I would do. But he was elderly, so I don't know what his mobility issues are or anything like that.
Sure. And a lot of our stuff, for example, seemingly, it's about evasion, blending, moving. So, you may not have that room, so to speak, or you're all of a sudden confronted with. Okay. So I just gave it some thought today. And something I thought we might work on Sunday. It's hard to do here just one-on-one. Okay. But for example, we do our basic arm, we push, we pull. Okay. Push, pull, basic extension. Things that help. You can visualize a beam or water through a hose or whatever. So one of the things that, it's not done very much, but for example, I'll be the attacker and I'm not going to bring a hammer in, but, actually come down with weight. Down with weight, okay? And here on this end, I don't quite get the extension out. Obviously that weight penetrates the extension. Or conversely, I block it and receive a lot of force if there's a lot of force coming. Okay. And so one of the things that is worked on sometimes is when it's like boom. Now, obviously, there's other things that need to be done, but and one thing Ueshiba Sensei said that the light that we want in Aikido is the light that can go through walls and doors. So I'm extending, but extension plus, or conversely, I'm present, but presence plus. Now, the thing I will also mention is that that's not a lot of what we kind of work on in class. We work on blending and moving and following, and there are other things. So it's something that maybe I thought we might focus a bit more on Sunday, because this is getting to be an issue. Okay, so one of the things. The actual sense of a cut. But there's that sense where, or conversely, full extension of spirit. So maybe what Osensei was talking about, I'm standing here, present, presence plus. Space around me tends to kind of open up a bit, but there's kind of also kind of a laser focus upon that. So obviously it's bigger, it's lighter, but there's that sense of a laser focus. Okay, one of the younger teachers, actually it's probably one of the senior teachers in Shingu now, he came into the dojo and he said he decided to do Aikido when he saw something. And so what he saw Tojima Sensei teaching the class. And Tojima Sensei kind of brought up, obviously it was Hikizuchi Sensei's school, actually it was O Sensei's school, all right? And Hikizuchi Sensei was the person who ran the dojo, and then there were a group of instructors under him, and Tojima Sensei was there. But there was kind of a younger group right under that. And one of them was very, he was a very young sixth dan, okay? And, really into the martial training, right? And Tojima Sensei calls him up and, he kind of picks the bokken up and Tojima Sensei says to swing it, and it's like, boom, he's just sort of right there. He's, the air whistles and everything. Tojima Sensei says full contact. The guy comes in, Tojima Sensei goes like that. And the thing goes right down the arm, boom. And I've seen Tojima Sensei do that. Not the most spectacular thing I saw him do, but that was, I've seen him do that one. Obviously, if you're kind of there, boom, full extension, right in the moment. So one of the things is, I'm going to swing the sword. Okay, I'm going to swing it. I'm getting some exercise. And I'm learning how to do it. But, step back. So extension plus. The plus is important. So what I recommend you do is, if you have one, just pick a bokken up. Make sure you don't poke a hole in your ceiling. I'm actually even stepping back and stepping into it. Okay, because sometimes I'm here and doing the movement, but stepping back and stepping into it. And Tojima Sensei would say things like, when you're cutting, it's like you could cut through steel. Full extension, not just, okay, I'm swinging. what I'm going to shorten it up a little bit, but boom, without that step. Try to retain that feeling of extension plus. I'm not worried about how many I do or whatever. Extension plus. There's only that extension plus in the moment. I'm not worrying about how well I'm doing it. Or you might go back to that step in. Back foot, steps in, step back. So for me right now, what we're doing is just that center line. Okay, now let's just say there's an incoming of some form. An incoming. Tendency is to be mental in the extension, or conversely to block it. But so the second before you raise, there's that feeling of a light that goes through walls and there's sort of what we call the unshakable feeling to it. And it's adaptable if it's coming from higher or straight on. And you're actually stepping into it as opposed to trying to get around it. And trying to capture that feeling is hard without a partner because I'm kind of extending, okay. I have a better extension, okay. It's different than extension plus. Extension plus isn't like I'm going to extend better. So, there is that feeling that as they talked about, might be best I can do, or there's light emanating from you. It's going through that wall. Okay. Not that that's by itself, but that's an attitude. Cliff, anything on that one?
Yeah, I liked the stepping. That felt like that added a little more energy to it.
Yeah.
Also, I'm trying to figure out what the plus is. It's just the me
plus
being
is,
analytical.
That's I think the problem with it, if you try to figure it out, you're not there. I know that's a kind of a crazy thing. It goes back to Yoda. Was it do or not do? There is no try. Something like that. It's Uh,
Yeah, I say that to my kids all the time.
yeah, well, I mean, we all do, that thing. But faced with weight, mass, and some maybe very, very negative intention coming this way. I guess the major thing is, boom, there's that sense where there's light coming through you, that it can go right through whatever it is. Of course, the arm must be extended. And, we can kind of work up to it or whatever. But the plus, that's the other thing, I'm centering or grounding, whatever it is. But there's that center plus. So in some sense, there's no training to get you to that plus zone. On the other hand, ideally, some level of the training is to get you to that plus zone. So it's really a paradox, which, of course, paradoxes are always fun, or not, depending on the nature of the paradox and where I am with myself and the paradox. But the sense of, for example, like the bokken training, I'm learning about a cut, I'm going to cut and get better at the cut. And there's that cut plus. I guess for me, for example, let's just use example I tend to use, although it's not something, you got to find your own. Okay. I think of Stephen Curry, and he shoots hundreds and hundreds of threes, repetitive. But my thought on him is, you can shoot him and make him practice, and then in a game, it's a different matter. But I always get the feeling what he really does in practice, because sometimes it happens. He's fouled right during the shot from a 3-point. Guess what? A lot of times he makes that shot and he gets a free throw. So my feeling, with it's not quite the same thing as the plus, but like if I'm going like this, I'm cutting, boom, I'm throwing a bunch of practice shots. They're all going in. Okay. But the game, there's so much more going on right there. And it's like boom, boom, boom. So I always get the feeling in practice, he's not just trying to make the shot. He's practicing and one, and one, and one, and one, and one, and one. Now, part of the cut is having, to some degree, absolute confidence. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but boom. And, there's a whole bunch of things you got to learn, like, the actual grip. This is your power hand, don't do that. Actually, still raise it to there, boom, boom. But that feeling, somebody whacks my arm or hits my body, the shot goes in and I get a free throw. And I just get the feeling that Mr. Curry, whether he knows it or not, every shot he takes is with that feeling of and one. Okay? The cut, boom, very important to extend through the cut, not just cut, but there's extension in that cut. But we're going to say, boom, extension plus. Okay. So I'm not sure, I mean, things that you can kind of do. Now, for example, I swing that way. Believe it or not, it's not an agitated feeling, it's very calm. You feel ready, but not forced.
Yeah, just now I relaxed a little bit more like I was when I was doing Randori on Wednesday, and it seems like that did a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like I'm like, maybe the plus is like throughout the cut. And so I just, instead of focusing so much on the ending, which I've been doing, I focused on the beginning and the middle, and then the ending kind of took care of itself.
Well, I mean, if you're Mr. Curry, which means, and I don't know this, if I ever met him, I might ask that question. Steph, when you're shooting practice, are you really N1? And I don't know. I think for him, it's just the way he is. Okay, it doesn't mean all shots are going to go in. I mean, that's a very difficult situation. Most of the time, the people on the other team are super athletes trying to deter him, right? But that sense of right there, and one, you're not going to make them all, but there's something about that feeling of the light that goes through walls and doors, is the way Shiva kind of put it. Because there's a whole bunch of just verbiage that goes on. And then, of course, there's kind of this area of taking that verbiage into the training. In other words, I'm going to do this, I got to understand that. And that's all good. But there's that area, you're standing in that plus zone. Or sitting in it. Or breathing in it. Or meditating in it. Or grounding in it. There are a lot of different styles to it. You've got to sort of find your own. Just sort of putting this to the side. What's it like to kind of sit in that plus zone? See, confidence is funny because it has very little to do with thinking. But on the other hand, if you're thinking negative thoughts or doubting yourself, that tends to kind of go. And conversely, if you're pumping yourself up with exaggerated thoughts about what you can do and everything, that doesn't do you much good either. So I thought Shiba Sensei's description of it, the light that can go through walls and doors. There's this exercise that we used to do in Shingu, the rowing exercise. And Shiba Sensei said, you reach out like you can grab steel. Well, that was kind of his, way, okay, now I'm going to do this move. Reach out like you can grab steel. And there's something there where, because when you do that, you are the center. Plus, so to speak, in that plus state. So, anything you care to add or whatever?
I think I'm still I'm still pondering it.
Yeah,
We also, I'll note, we have another student, Yumiko Foss is online,
yeah, no,
and might want to comment.
yeah, if you care to chime in, please do. If you don't, then, you know, I mean, that is, a lot of it's up to you. I mean, whether this is of any value to you, I hope it is. There was another time, you know, where I was kind of in a meditation class with Robert Nadeau. And he was talking about, you know, different words. He's talking about this. And so one of the meditators asked him, what do you feel like when you're in that state? And he said, like I could go right through that wall. So it's not, you know, just a mental state. That doesn't mean that you try to bash the wall down or that you can't. It's a lot to do with, I think, a word that in a lot of ways is kind of not in use much these days. It goes into courage. And a lot of times, you know, what happens is we have situational courage. We're in a situation, we do this or that. Person, I don't agree with their politics, but a person that I've actually come to admire quite a bit is Liz Cheney. I don't agree with her politics, but on the other hand, she has courage. It's not situational. It's not trying to impress her party members or all of a sudden get, you know, if Democrats vote for her, well, I'm sure some did. You know, there's an area where that's courage has a lot to do with, you know, your own convictions about who you are and what you represent. And, you know, there's that area where you're, you know, you call it courage plus. And I think also say, you know, when he was talking about one of the things Aikido was supposed to help us develop was maybe that. In a lot of ways, we're talking about it when it can't be talked about. And, you know, if we're facing an intruder with a hammer, the question is, would we be able to come from that place? That's to be determined. Okay. But some of the training, I know that in Shingu, Hikizuchi Sensei used to always say that Aikido was not a sport because, you know, let's just say a sport, you know, there's a winner and a loser, and the winners and the losers either go out for beer together or they hate each other, and one is great that they won and the other one is despising the other because they lost. But Shinken, live blade, and his, you know, definition of Shinken was Makoto Aware, which is manifesting Makoto, which is truth, sincerity. We have all this surface stuff, you know, that we kind of, you know, I am my surface vibe. I am this, that, I stand for this, I despise that. And, you know, the actual sense of Makoto is, you strip all that away. Who are you? And in a lot of ways, you know, what we're talking about, the plus area, is not something you add to. It's more like you strip things away you don't need. And so, you know, that part of it is, for that, you know, the bokken sometimes is maybe a little better, although we haven't been doing too much of it lately, than some of the staff spear movements. Staff spear movements are important because they kind of work kind of the basic algorithms, equations, you know, the entering, turning, timing, okay? I think Osensei's genius was, you know, he took lateral motion and combined that with this motion, Tai Sabaki, okay? And he worked on that past, which you would call the actual technique. Yurimi Tenkan. That's good. People don't never shed the denseness of it or see what's past the technique. Now the question is, you know, is this unique to what we do? Probably not. But I think Osensei's hope was that the art would produce people who were makoto, that were in touch with their own truth. And not just that, but manifesting that truth in a way that, you know, collectively would inspire the world to be better. And, you know, something, for example, today with the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband is, you know, the divides in the country, the rhetoric, the lies that people put out, the lies that people believe when they're lies, and also, you know, the fact that if somebody disagrees with you, then violence is justified. It's really unfortunate. And so, you know, as Aikidoists, we're kind of right in the middle of it. So the question is, how does the Aikido help us? For me, for example, you know, this morning, it's just such you going, okay. Now, one of the things that you know, we look at is we look at maybe the older parts of the art. And, you know, the older parts of the art had a lot to do with the fact that, you know, the battlefield, sword, spear, but, you know, and armor, you know. So, you know, if you lose your spear, your sword's broken, you don't have your short sword, and you're facing somebody in the same situation, both in armor, right? Well, in fact, there's certain things like joints. If you punch somebody in armor, the armpit, right? Somebody's wearing a helmet, you go, wow, but you know, boom, if you can kind of, that shock wave. Okay. I mean, Sensei goes to Tokyo because a bunch of one admiral and one general, you know, joined his classes in Ayabe where he's teaching kids and basically people who are devotees of Deguchi Sensei. And he's so outstanding, they say, well, come and teach. He was teaching police and he was teaching military, which they would be very stiff. So how do you get him to do it? I mean, probably, you know, not just hit, but boom. You probably had to knock that stiffness out of people. And as you know, they produced ukes that, you know, were more receptive. There's more movement, but boom. And so, you know, the bokken, say the actual, okay, now, boom, you watch me, how am I doing? I'm studying the cut. Now I study the cut enough, boom, I'm trying to get that vibration at the end of the cut, but it's out there. See, when you do this, it bounces. If you watch the cut, boom. dum, pop, dum, pop. And, I mean, you're facing somebody in armor, and you go, bah, but it's like, and that sends a shockwave through them. And then, modern Aikido is some smoother form. Okay, but you've got to realize that the ancient Daito view that a lot of our movements came from was battlefield stuff. Somebody is kind of like this on you. Well, we take them out a little bit. The wrist, the elbow, the shoulder, they all break. We do that sometimes with a forward roll. Boom. And somebody goes like this. The koregashi, boom. The wrist snaps. Of course, then you're facing, somebody with 2 legs and a free arm, so you got to do more than that. But that aspect right there. There's a warrior aspect to it that sometimes gets lost, or people think because they're doing the techniques and that they have that, and it's a bit different. Okay, so just plus 4 and 1. So you could be cutting, and you could be somebody shooting and making all these shots in practice, and then in the game, boom. Or in practice, you're not just making them, but boom, and 1, and 1, and 1, and 1. See, at that particular point, that vibration is here. And I think, of Sensei's level, that vibration was so pure. He exuded that light that could go through walls and doors. So, the sword is actually a good way of, if you kind of do it properly. Now you're holding somebody's arm, you're teamwork. Okay. Nage. But a good uke holds with weight, but doesn't lock out and resist. Okay. Boom. And nage, deals with the weight of uke, touching kind of the finer dimensions. Now, in the bokken, boom, and 1, and 1, and 1. And standing here, there's that sense that vibration is coming through an interior place. And that is, ever since there's level, tells us it generates heat and light, which can start to fill the interior organs, and that generates what he calls power. It's not necessarily about muscles, although, okay. So, if you read his stuff, most people don't think, oh, yeah, heat, light, strength. Or without the step is still and 1. one thing that just swinging this thing does for me on a day like today, because, nobody likes what's going on in a lot of the world. The fact that we have the husband of the House Speaker attacked today in San Francisco, it's not necessarily what you want to wake up to. It doesn't change the situation, but it changes me. Where I can say, yeah, that went on. But all of a sudden, I'm kind of more present. It's almost like, all the negativity out there, the light you generate goes through it. It can be very easy with things if you have that plus state kind of backing that easiness up. Anyway, anything, Cliff, anything you care to add or?
I really liked what you said about the plus being stripping away stuff, and
Yeah.
I thought about like the hitches which we get in movement, and that's just stripping away a lockup or a tension or something like that. And I like the stepping back because then it felt like the sword cut came out of it, like emerged out of the hip movement.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so when I'm focused on the hips, I'm not so focused on holding the sword, and I'm easier with it, and that those hitches go away.
Well, a lot of what you're kind of getting with the sword, okay, is vibration. And part of Aikido, for example, Kokyu, breath. But Kokyu is not your physical breathing. And the actual physical breath, obviously stop breathing or can't do Aikido, right? But there's breath. It's kind of a calmer state, but it's very alive. And so, you can swing this and swing it, but just being in that pure moment when the vibration here extends out and through. And then you get maybe we start to get the beginnings of what Odo Sensei said when he says, the light that goes through walls and doors. I'm not going to go through any walls and doors today, but it's a metaphor. And then somebody comes at you and says, boom, you're right there. The easiest thing to do is obviously step off the way, but sometimes, you're going to have to, you're people, I'm going to get off the line, choose to get off the line. And a lot of the Irimi movement is actually the inner striking motion, and then there's also pure Irimi, and then those are two strikes right there. So, if we just go back but the step in is a good practice because boom, you get the hip into it a bit more. Most of the time, people they set, and then they kind of put their upper body into it. But right here, and after a while, so I vary the cuts from. Just get the feeling of the hip, and then maybe I'll do some right. But I like that feeling of and one. I see so many times, that Curry goes to the hoop and lays it in. He's knocked to the ground. They don't call the foul. But he expects it now because he didn't get those calls. So even though he makes two, he should be getting plus and one right there. So that feeling right there. If you don't do that, something called spirit doesn't come through. Spirit doesn't come through just the effort of cutting or the knowledge of how to cut, Spirit comes through, the degree to which it will come through, and one. Then we get that plus state. So anyway, that's for me on a daylight today. It's a bokken swinging day. Anything more on that one?
No, just continuing to try to focus on my hips.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of Bokken Friday.
Okay. And Fumiko, if you feel like chiming in, this is an open discussion. So, just always respect where people come from. So if they just want to just watch, that's cool. If you want to join in, then you can. Okay, please do. But for example, we're gonna stand up. Stand up plus. We're gonna be here. Presence plus. See that plus, if you try to figure it out, which you'll try to figure it out, because we all do. But it's kind of past that. Stand or sit plus. So we're in that plus zone. All this dialogue up here is probably still there, but I'm in a different zone with it. And it's funny how when you're in this plus zone, things oftentimes work out. And of course, there's knowledge and there's practice. That's all really important as well. But so, today, we've been kind of working a little bit on. Yes, I said for me, today is definitely a bokken day as opposed to, a lot of the other stuff you do with the sword and the spear, okay, or the staff. Loss. Okay. Ooh. Don't know what else to say. It's very uncertain times. So the other thing when I'm in this zone, things are just a lot clearer. Who I am is a lot clearer. What's going on out there is a lot clearer. My choice of who I am and how I'm going to get involved in what's going on out there is a lot clearer. So I think maybe that's Cliff, anything you want to add before we go? We got about 5 minutes, so, just.
No, I've got a lot to think about and
Yeah.
to focus on already, so I don't have anything to add at this time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the point of it is, the actual something plus, key plus, condense center plus, CoQ plus. That's a pretty deep study because we get satisfied with so little, It's a point where, as much as days like today, which are really hard. I know sometimes, I'm wearing this shirt. I'll tell you, in June, I didn't think I'd be wearing this Warrior Championship t-shirt because they were facing a team that was younger, more athletic, the top defensive team in the league, with the defensive player of the year. And they had a lot of young stars. And the Warriors had a lot of their stars, but they were older, right? And what I was amazed to see, it didn't look good for a while. Just after the first game and also after game 3, it's almost like the upcoming elections, going to midterms, I'm like, but what happened is Curry didn't let the Warriors lose. And what the Warriors had was somebody in this plus state showing them the way as a leader. And so the younger guys like Wiggins and some of the other ones, Poole, they stepped up because they had Steph as a leader to show them what that plus level was. The other team had more talent. Conventional basketball was bigger, younger, more athletic. But they didn't have Mr. Curry in his plus zone as a leader. And so, that's a sport. I'm kind of, what we kind of right now really need to, if possible, because the world is getting a certain place where we step up into our own plus zone. Clarity, conviction, focus, where necessary, adaptable. So I don't know, that would for me be like the lesson of today. We're getting a lot of lessons right now. So, today we focused a bit on the bokken. So, and just before we go, and you don't have to speak up, but Fumiko, if you have anything you might want to add, feel free. Okay. Anyway, what we're going to do is thank you for tuning in today. There's class on Sunday. I'm feeling better. Okay. So planning on being at the Mountain View class 11:30 to 1. And I thought what we do is work on, that plus zone. Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Sensei.
Take care. Well, let me make sure, for example, right here, we stop the recording. Stop recording.